and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing for a moment of silence. Thank you very much. Please remember to silence your phones, pagers, and Item number 2, do we have any citizen concerns on anything that is not already on the agenda? Hearing none, I move approval of today's agenda.
Second.
Motion by DeWitt, second by Taylor. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Passes 5-0. Can I read slow enough to get us to 4:45 for this? Items 4 through 7 constitute a consent agenda of routine action items to be considered by one motion. Items pass unanimously unless a separate vote is requested by a board member. Item 4, approval of the minutes of the November 27, 2018 meeting. Item 5, approval of claims. Item 6, human resources, approval of memorandum of personnel transactions. Secondary roads, getting back to the HR one, we will have an issue that we want to, can you explain that real quick, Melissa?
One of the personnel transactions for Thomas Tolbert will not be considered tonight, so that will not be part of the consent agenda. So I don't know what.
It just deleted, it's a resignation.
Okay.
So it won't take effect anyway, so, thank you. Item 7, secondary roads. Approval of permit for work in the right-of-way. 7B, approval of annual report for the county, or of the county weed commissioner. I move approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion by DeWitt, second by Radig, to approve the consent agenda with the exception of deleting item mentioned from HR. All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Passes 5-0.
Mr. Chair, if it's not out of order with the time we have, would you like to hear anything from our weed commissioner who's here?
Absolutely.
We want to know how the buckhorn plantain and the
There's none in Woodbury County.
velvet leaf is doing.
Is there any questions on my report, I guess? I should ask you guys.
Differences over last year?
There is a difference. They changed our dates of when it has to be in. I should have been to you guys a little sooner than this. We have a new state weed commissioner, and he changed some dates on us, and I wasn't aware of that until I went up to the engineer's office and got my copy of the weed report, and then I looked on it and seen that it should have been done by now. Sorry about that, guys. Next year it will be sooner, but just a change, and it's been the other way for years. And I never looked at the email that close and kept going and doing stuff. And then when I went up to Tish and got the report, they had changed the dates on it. So I'm a little bit late, but I already talked to the state weed commissioner. We're all right. I've talked to Mark just a little bit. We're going to, we need to update our spray truck, our spray system. According to the Department of Ag, they're going to make us go to GPS. It'll tell, instead of me writing what the weather is, the wind, the humidity, and all that stuff, instead of me writing it down, the new system will tell what it is. So there's no, the big problem right now is chemical trespassing because of the dicamba issue with the farmers, the dicamba beans. They're having a lot of troubles. We've had a few farmers call us and think that I sprayed something because the dicamba that come from this field came across the road and into the other farmer field that didn't have dicamba beans, and it caused damage to those beans. It looks like I came along there spraying because everything is dead in the ditch, not the brome, but everything else, any broadleaf. The only thing that saves us is we're getting plenty of milkweeds, which we don't spray milkweeds for the butterflies and the bees. And I can show the farmer that as soon as I get there. Because I can go a half mile down the road and show them, look, you see all this? This is what I spray, you know, a spot spray. This is a blanket spray. I mean, the dicamba turns into a gas, comes across and gets us. And I had probably 15 different instances where I went out and met with farmers and different chemical people and showed them that it wasn't us, and just kind of a tough deal. But we're still having some issues with all the 10-year program that's being planted. With the first couple of years, it's a little weedy, but they're getting it mowed and keeping it clipped, and the SCS office down here is good to work with. So,
I don't know if they don't know what dicamba is.
okay, so they came out with a dicamba bean. It means, okay, so there's Palmer amaranth coming from everywhere. So they came up with a dicamba bean so that they can spray with different chemicals. Instead of a Roundup bean, which you can use a glyphosate on, it's a dicamba bean, so you can use dicamba on it. It's just another way for them to get rid of weeds. Well, it's caused a lot of trouble. The EPA, now the EPA is in on it, and every day on my phone, I get an email from someone that the EPA is doing something different with the dicamba rules and regulations, and it's a tough deal. We do not use any dicamba for any kind of spraying at the county. I still use the method MSN because it won't turn into a gas and take off. We're safe till there's something that the method and the MSN won't kill, and then we'll have to switch again or move on. Hopefully by then we have something. So. Getting back to the spray truck, that is a 2002 model, that spray system is, and it is just outdated. I cannot take my console anywhere to get it fixed. If I have troubles with that console, I have to take it apart myself and solder it back together or hot wire it across to something else. And I mean, it's pretty much a time bomb. I mean, it's one of these days we're not gonna have it. It's not gonna work anymore. But with the Department of Ag wanting us to go to the GPS download so we can download it every day on a computer when we're done spraying, I mean, that's okay, I guess, because we gotta update our equipment. The only bad part is it's gonna limit my spraying days bad because of 10-mile-an-hour wind or the humidity or stuff like that. You know, it's gonna change a few things. There's no cheat in the system at all. I mean, it's gotta be spot on all the time, so I guess we'll just play it as it goes or see what we can get done with a new spray system. We did look into one last fall, and I think they quoted us like around $32,000 for a whole. We'll keep our pickup and put a whole new bed on it, spray the whole new computer system in it, tanks, everything will be new. We did refloor or patch the floor in the spray truck that we have now this spring. We put a temporary fix in it just to get by until we decide what we're gonna do with that spray rig or go into a different spray rig or see what happens.
Yeah, we did put in a budget of $35,000 for a new rig. And the good thing about the GPS, it's either gonna prove he's there or it's gonna prove he's not there. It's the same as with the GPS we have on all of our equipment. And I think it's worth, long term, I think it's going to be worth having it as far as dealing with complaints and then knowing whether or not he's been there.
Right now, we just have I have a township map, and I just dates, times, every 2 hours I put down the weather. And you just fill it in, you know, you just mark it with a highlighter where you've been and who's you've been on, and this system is supposed to, well, the systems that I've seen, it does all that for you. The only thing is, at the end of the day, you gotta download all that, and I'll have to step up, I suppose, to some kind of computer printer or something, or, we haven't really visited about that yet, but.
Yeah, we'll have that figured out with Kyle. It's something we can tie into our GPS data and our GIS there, so we can show where we've been and show progression of our program too. So I think there's some things where we'll be able to show more accountability for how much he's getting done out there. And we'll be helping with those downloads when that time comes.
So will that cut both ways in the instance that somebody says, well, you sprayed here on, or they suspect that you did, will you be able to use that GPS data and
Yes.
to
Yes.
be a
And right
defense
now-
to say?
Right, right now, I can just get my spray sheet out and show them,
Wow.
where I sprayed. So far, we haven't, well, we did, with the brush mower, we had a little bit of a bean kill, but not, that wasn't nothing to, that farmer isn't even concerned, he just wanted me to be aware of it.
And we've been using GPS since 2013 to prove where our trucks are. We've had windshield complaints or rock coming off of a truck, and when they tell us time and date, we know whether we've got a truck or a piece of equipment in the area. It's saved us and it's hung us. But at least when we get a windshield complaint or a problem complaint, we're confident that we're paying it out, that we're paying out something that's justified.
Okay.
Maybe we could go to like our website and have a track your weed commissioner map,
To you
Right.
guys and to Mark, that's fine, but to the public, because every person that has this different bug in their garden, I don't want them to say, well, the weed commissioner was here, because that's, you know what I mean? I'm okay with you guys looking at it, the Department of Ag looking at it, but as far as the public, I mean, that's up to you guys, but
I think
I
we'll,
might- I know
you're here.
we'll withhold Mr. Raddick's suggestion.
The
I might
other,
be real willing to give up the job if that's the case.
the other
been
option
often
was, now the no, if I took the truck to Ames and had them spray 13-3 on the football field, it kind of takes away that ability to do that, so.
You can borrow it if you want.
Okay.
We're gonna take some stickers off before it leaves. I need you to sign this. Bottom here. If you could, please.
We need to receive this or anything, Mr. Gill?
That's the agenda item.
Okay.
Consent agenda.
Can you answer how to get rid of Creeping Jenny and Creeping Charlie in 3 minutes?
In your yard?
And a garden?
I don't even want to, you know what, I have gardens, I had to go speak at an Iowa State, Master Gardeners deal here a couple months ago, and when they called me, I was like, no way. When I see a garden, I don't want to be nowhere near it, but, that's a good place to look, is that Iowa State Master Gardeners thing, and when they talk about that, because, there's a lot of different stuff, but as far as, if your family's gonna be eating out of the garden and stuff like that, I don't wanna recommend a chemical that,
Right.
that's not my specialty at all.
Sure. You're just gonna kill everything, right?
Well, not quite everything. Can't kill all the trees yet, can we? Heck.
We're working on brush. One of the strange things we had this year is we had that wild cucumber all over the place. I don't know if you drove.
Chinese
through our county
cucumber?
roads, but- Pardon?
Chinese cucumber?
Whatever it is, but there was a place down on Sully Road where it had actually grown up and over a little grain bin. I mean, that grain bin was just leaves and that cucumber growing all over it. Where we did that bridge on 210th Street, or Bridge Q10, that whole ditch was lined with it. It was growing up trees.
thick
It was very thick this year.
It's not on the noxious weeds list yet, or anything. They've talked about it a lot. A lot of people talk, I had a lot of calls on it. A lot of calls, but if we went to start spraying that, our budget would go crazy.
It's what would be called an invasive.
Yeah, it started growing out on Plum Creek Road in town. So it's on like Briarcliff's trees and then on my property line.
Well, that's a city problem then, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's
Okay,
my
good.
problem, really.
I think it's something that's going to be one of the growing problems that we've got out there that.
I know in March, at the weed commissioners meeting in Ames, they're definitely going to talk about it to us and see where everybody wants to go with it. But if they would happen to do that, our budget's gonna go crazy. I mean, it's unbelievable.
It's going to be interesting to see what happens next year with reseed and regrowth. Whether it catches on next year like it did this year.
Yeah, it's hard to tell. It just depends on the year.
We, it looks like are at our set time for,
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
thanks, Jared. Secondary roads. Second reading of the compression brake use ordinance.
Again, this had been a project worked on with the county attorney's office due to complaints from a couple of our communities. We're looking at 8 different locations, some along state, some along county roads, for establishment of an ordinance prohibiting the use of compression brakes. I read through those the last time. I don't know if there's anybody here who has any comments on it that they're interested in sharing on it. There had been a great deal of concern expressed by some of our rural residential subdivisions on the edges of our communities and from those within the communities as well.
Go ahead.
Does the sheriff's tweet put the brakes on this, so to speak?
What's that,
I
Keith?
have not seen the sheriff's tweet on this. I've been.
Or is he here to, he's not here to speak? Is there anyone else that can speak for him? Or is that,
Lieutenant Armstrong, would you please come up? In the meantime, Mark, where is this, so I'm clear because I've been asked this, is this coming from the engineer's office due to complaints that you've received?
I've received complaints. The city of Lawton contacted Joshua at the county attorney's office. So,
Okay.
you know, we have received complaints from those folks that are just outside the Sioux City limits as well, where they border on Highway 75 and Highway 20. And then down on 210th Street, east of Sergeant Bluff. We had a lot of concern expressed about trucks running up and down the road there, just to the east, where they're pretty much solid housing alongside of County Route D38, and compression brakes were one of the things that the folks in that area were concerned about.
Lieutenant Armstrong, do you have any comments for the sheriff's office?
I am not a tweeter, but I will tell you that the little bit of knowledge I have on this is that that type of ordinance would be very difficult to enforce with the 3 or 4 deputies that we'd have out there during that time. You know, unless we get a complaint or we're right there when it happens, it's going to be very difficult to enforce. So.
And then there's the language, the thought that if the trucker deems it a roadworthy emergency, that how's the deputy or anybody gonna really hand him a ticket for that?
That's part of the problem, yes.
Well, and just like a speeding violation or another type of violation, that's where your law enforcement officer would observe that emergency. It would be the guy who's bombing down Highway 20, coming to the edge of Mobile, nobody in front of him throws on that compression brake that would deservedly be ticketed. But if he's coming up quickly behind another vehicle, I think any of our law enforcement officers would exercise good judgment and realize that that guy is trying to slow down his truck more quickly, throwing every bit of brake he can to slow the vehicle.
And as an aside, where I live is rural, of course, and I'm about a half a mile from New Highway 20. I still call it New Highway 20, but coming up through that valley, the truckers going east or west coming down that hill, I hear those Jake brakes when the weather's just right. And I can't say it rattles my windows, but if they're doing it at 0300, I can hear it. You know, it might wake me up, but with the windows open and so forth. But yeah, I mean, I see the issue of the complaint, but to the sheriff's point and the rest of his staff, I think this is going to be really hard to enforce and make everybody happy. But
Without a question.
so,
I mean, it's really kind of the same as enforcing the speed limit, though. I mean, you throw a sign up on the road, and if you're not there to catch them, you can't enforce it.
But one of the other things about having the signs in place is it may create an awareness among those who are driving trucks out there, and they'll be more considerate of the border along the highway. I mean, that to me would be a possible advantage.
Putting up a sign has always stopped activity.
Yeah, I know.
That's why we have the speed limit signs and the stop signs and everybody obeys them.
That's my first response to the folks who want to have a children at play or other sign out there in the rural areas, that, you know, sometimes signs become part of the background and are ignored. But again, those who are compliant with the law will generally remain compliant with the law. Those who choose to ignore it, they'd be the ones that are causing the issue that folks are complaining about. And a sign is not going to stop those folks. Agreed.
Mr. Chair.
Sir.
So it's obviously been happening. So a question for Sheriff's Office or really anyone, in the two communities that do have it by ordinance, has it been enforced once?
My knowledge, I don't know of any of our deputies that have actually ever written a ticket for that.
Have there been complaints to the
To my knowledge, I have not personally received, or none of the guys that are under my two teams, I don't believe I've received any complaints.
One of those things, again, you put the sign out, most people obey the sign, you know?
Yeah, I mean, there's no harm in passing this ordinance.
We
Just a
already
question
have
of,
it in effect in two places. You have it in effect in Mobile and you have it in effect in Sloan. Sioux City has their own ordinance.
It's been highly enforced.
I think that's the case with all of them.
It's a feel-good ordinance. It's not going to hurt to pass it.
This was not the
Enforcement's the
highest
least of the
priority in
worries.
my office. We just got to this months after these complaints were occurring. The real impetus came when Lawton came to the county attorney's office and requested that we address it.
And Butler's going to sit at the four-way stop and file the complaints.
I'll do that. Give me time.
Give him a badge, buddy.
Do we have any other public input on, for the second reading of the compression brake use ordinance?
I'd move to approve the December 4th reading of the compression brake use ordinance and set December 18th at 4:45 PM for the third reading.
Let's change that to a little bit sooner.
I requested the 18th because.
No, that is on the clock,
Oh, sure.
not on the date.
Just tell me what time you'd like to have us do it, and Karen.
Let's do
and I'll make sure
4:35, just for the heck of it.
4:35.
We can do that.
Thank you.
Karen and I are so directed.
Two motions, please.
I will second the motion by Mr. Taylor.
First motion?
What's that?
The first motion?
Yes, that one. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Passes 5-0.
And the second motion is setting it?
Yep.
And you second?
I'll second his second motion.
Okay.
At 4:35 p.m.
Any further questions or discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Reports on committee meetings. Sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So just an update on Rolling Hills budget moving forward, threefold. We had a meeting with Patty Erickson-Putman, Teresa Yoakum, two supervisors from Rolling Hills, myself and Dennis Butler, and was very appreciative of all staff getting some granularity on the budget to make sure that what we wanted to see is what we would potentially put forward as a budget. We've talked about a budget target of 3.3 million, but we wanted to see what was expended during the last fiscal year and line those up. Some different things came to light that were very helpful in understanding where we had paid out in like a period 13 situation, twofold, and any discrepancies we reconciled, which is very helpful. That's going to go before their board. They have two meetings in December on the 12th and the 27th, in which they'll talk about Woodbury County's budget. A piece of good news related to that, and Dennis, feel free to please supplement as we go along, is Sue Rivers has let us know that potentially the estimate that we would be walking away with was $1,448,750, our 61%, which is higher than maybe we had anticipated earlier, which will mean that we may not be very far above our previous max levy. I have sent an email to the Department of Management asking if they indeed do need a signed 2080 agreement with Rolling Hills in order for us to be at their max per capita. So I'll let you know what the response is there. But very appreciative of those supervisors coming over. They also spent time at Chesler Hall. At least two of them spent time at the Sanford Center and the Crisis Center and the Friendship House. And so I'm appreciative as supervisors from those 7 counties continue to come and learn our services. That's my update.
Thank you. Round 2 of citizen concerns. Hearing none. Item 11, board concerns. We have started the paperwork, started the contract to put out for bid the land, the farm ground at Prairie Hill. So that should be, Karen, remind me, when was that gonna be?
Bids are due the January 7th.
Okay,
And we'll go from there on the 8th.
thank you. So we will have a contract in place for that.
Should we do the Breeze Farm at the same time? I could get that together.
Was that just a one-year contract?
That was just a one-year contract.
Oh, yeah, we probably better, I didn't think about
And then
that.
we can throw it on the same cycle as what the,
That would make sense.
yeah.
Good,
I'll get the paperwork going with that then too and get it to you. It'll be Thursday. but-
yeah, good question, thank you. Sir?
As we go through evaluations, I know we each have, and thank you, Mr. Chair, for setting that out, those who are evaluating as far as department heads. And as we've done that, I just want to reiterate that those department heads are to be evaluating their people as well. I mean, that's a contractual obligation of the master contract in many instances. And so I just want to put a bug in everybody's ear that that's something that we should be asking to make sure that everyone's current on, because it's important if we're taking the time to make sure that the fidelity is followed through there to be doing that. And I talked to Melissa a little bit on, making sure that that's happening, so.
And Melissa, is there part of those evaluations that judges department heads for evaluating those under them?
Say that again, I'm sorry.
What Mr. Taylor said, is that in the present form of the evaluations, that they're evaluated on how they evaluate?
Yes, well, there are different forms for the department head. Is that what you're asking? Yeah, there's different forms that they're used in.
And to that question, there is a portion that says evaluation of how the department head supervises, leads, directs, that. So I think that would probably broadly fall under.
And then, Mr. Chair, when those are completed, could they be disseminated to all board members? I understand a few are being worked on, but I haven't received any, so they may not be done yet, but
You can, are you required to get them, or you just asking because you want to see them?
I'm just asking because I want to see them.
Do you want them disseminated, or would you like to visit the,
It's up to you.
I think in the past, we had copies just put in the other supervisors' tills marked confidential, so there wasn't any crosstalk afterwards, but just kind of as an FYI.
Yeah, in the past, the supervisors themselves would distribute to the other. So I don't care if it's from you guys or from HR, but I just would like to make sure there's a process to get those.
I would prefer to see it come from HR, and that way there's less fingers touching these and
That's fine.
keep the privacy thing going.
Thank you.
Where applicable. So, any other board concerns?
We had that meeting out in Mobile and kind of discussed options for frontage road and negotiated maybe some potential bridge changes. I'll bring an item on the agenda for the 11th. So look at the backup material when that comes out, and we'll see, as a board what we think to do on that. But I don't know, anything.
Could we do the 18th?
Oh, 18th? Yeah, sorry, he said 18th. I'm sorry. So, because he's going to be gone, right, the 11th?
Correct.
Yeah.
Do you want to expand on what was discussed, or does everybody know what we were talking about there?
Would you like me to?
Would you please, Mark? That might be better coming from you.
In 2017, Supervisors Taylor, Nung, and I attended a chamber meeting where the folks in Mobile had expressed concerns about the condition of frontage street and their feeling that it needed to be upgraded and improved. And at that point in time, they were instructed by the supervisors in attendance that they should develop a plan and then bring it to the county engineer so that it could be developed and discussed and perhaps included in our 5-year program. Mobile has come to us now with a plan. Supervisors DeWitt and Radig and I met with City Council Nate Bowers.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Chad Thompson, the city attorney, and
Dakin.
Schultz.
yeah, Dakin Schultz, who's the chairman of their Planning and Zoning Commission there in Mobile last week. And the city, as you know, came to the Board of Supervisors and requested that the area in frontage road from Fair Avenue to the west, which is currently county right-of-way, be included in an urban renewal district so that they could capture the new tax increment to help out with future road improvements on the road with the businesses that are now locating and improving themselves along frontage road. The city would like to look at improving that road. They've asked us to delay temporarily the implementation of our plans to replace the Haskell Avenue Bridge as a possible source of funds that might be able to be freed from secondary roads to help pay for frontage road. At this time, just to clarify, everything from Fair Avenue to the west is county right-of-way. In our research through the county records, we found that we're not even sure that was ever turned over to the state. Highway 20 was a county road. In 1913, it became a primary highway, but there was never any transfer of that right-of-way from county to city and then city to county back again.
To state.
To state, and then state to county back again. We were given the highway, but that right-of-way may have always been ours. We have a request pending with the City Development Board to require the city of Mobile to annex to the center of that road. That would assure that any project work we do out there is split on a 50-50 basis, which I think is important since Mobile is the primary beneficiary of a project like that they be a partner with us, not just taking advantage of our proximity to find somebody to pay for it. The City Development Board is waiting for a certification that I'm working on with Joshua will be getting it to review, and then it'll be sent to the auditor for signature, identifying where the current city limit is. There was never a requirement, for instance, that the city annex a state highway in the same manner that there is when a city annexes a county route. They have to take the center line of the road. That wasn't present with a state highway, which is what old Highway 20 was. So there's never been any action since 1958 when we received the highway back to require the city to take over that half. We'd have a lot to talk about with design. We discussed the nature of a construction agreement between city and county as far as developing who would pay for what, who will do the design, who will do the construction supervision of a project out there. We didn't talk a lot about methods as to what type of road we would build. The city's gone through a visioning process. They have an image of what they'd like frontage road to look at, or look like when the project is built. You know, again, at this point in time, we've just been asked for hold on Haskell Avenue Bridge right now. Again, looking at that as a possible source of some funding for frontage road. We would not use the full amount of the price of the Haskell Bridge if that project were set aside to do that road to the west side. It should be a less costly project, especially with the city helping out with that.
Without getting into deliberation, as I know this is not an agenda item,
Correct.
my only question.
I'm trying to just give
Yep,
information.
yep. My only question was, is there assumption that that Haskell Avenue Bridge project would be pushed back? Or when they, again, informationally, gave this to you, was it that this would be in lieu of doing it all together?
That decision is ultimately up to the Board of Supervisors.
What was their assumption?
I think that was a mixed assumption
Okay,
from my reading of the room. I don't know what your reading would be, Rocky, but I think that what I'll write up in the proposal for the 18th is that we just delete that as a project. They've removed the old bridge. We have the plans if we need it, right? So
Correct. We have plans and permitting. Everything is ready to go. We were planning a January letting on the bridge.
yeah, so maybe either move that out of the 5-year plan or move it way back or.
If we wait till July 1st and we just don't do anything and then don't put it in the next plan, it's essentially done as a project.
Okay.
thank you.
So then what we'd prefer to do is obviously move a bridge up that's, you know, maybe in the $500,000 range and, you know.
Once we agree to what would be our share of the cost, we've got $700,000 programmed for the Haskell Avenue Bridge. If we only spend a third of that, of the secondary road funds toward frontage road, then that would allow us to utilize the balance of that money to bring forward a different bridge project. If you remember, when we added Haskell to the program last year, we bumped roughly 1 to 2 bridges per year to get enough money set aside to pay for it, since we didn't increase any taxes last year to pay for that Haskell bridge. So, we just shuffled the rest of the program around. Did I pretty much hit the?
Yeah, I think, like you said, it was an informational meeting between the city of Mobile, one of the council members, the city attorney, planning and zoning, Mr. Raddick and I and Mark, and it was, certainly we couldn't speak for, neither Keith or I could speak for the rest of the board, but we promised to bring it back and at least have a talk about it, so.
Neither project, neither Haskell nor Frontage Road is something that's particularly palatable to my department. You know, we would sooner see that money spent out in the rural area. We have 1,300 miles. But
We haven't been deliberating. I don't know what we've been doing.
Okay. You know, that's just information from our perspective, so.
Any other questions for Mark without deliberating?
We've been cut off by our monitor over there.
Thank you, Mark.
Yep.
Where are we at? Any other board concerns?
Not being able to talk about them essentially is deliberation, correct? Sorry,
What's that?
deliberation.
We are adjourned.